not interested in challenging the system or in fighting it, or disrupting it, so to speak, which is how often people like myself are viewed. I choose not to be a part of that system and to operate myself autonomously. Now, we have various other laws outside of the legislative acts and instruments here, which are actual laws and not acts, such as our common law or our English common law, as Captain Cook and Arthur Phillip brought here to these lands. Now, for example, under English common law or our common law principles, there is no need for me to provide remedy unless I've caused any harm, loss, damage, or injury. So let's say I had, for example, a speeding ticket for driving 3 kilometres over the limit. One of my first questions would be to ask, where is the injured party making a claim for damages? And can I see that verified or bona fide claim for damages? Now, as a man of honour, if I've caused any harm, loss, damage, or injury, Dennis, I'm happy to provide the remedy. But in the absence of harm, loss, damage, or injury, and there being no injured party coming forward to make a verified claim for damages, it's rather confusing as to why we're asked to provide remedy by way of a financial disbursement in the absence of any harm, loss, damage, or injury. Again, if I was speeding past you, I'm not going to have to pay damages for remedy for doing 3 or 5 kilometres over the limit when I passed you on the roads. Now, had I run my car into your car and I've caused some damage, that's a different story. I've caused the damage. I'm responsible for that. I therefore must provide the remedy to at very least get your car fixed, if not my own as well, for my own need. But if I've caused you to suffer any harm, loss, damage, or injury, Dennis, I am liable for that harm, loss, damage, or injury, and I must provide the remedy. And that's under common law and admiralty or maritime law. Those same rules apply.
Okay, and sorry, Zev.
This is what's missing with the law now is the argument that you were speeding, allegedly, for when you're in court. You're allegedly speeding and therefore could have caused an accident. Therefore, you have to pay the fine. Now, one of my common arguments for that is, well, I'm pretty broke at the moment too, and I could have robbed a bank that afternoon. But I don't see armed robbery on my list of charges based on the grounds of what if. Where are the facts and evidence of the injured party for me to provide damages to? And this is part of the other point here, Dennis. Good people do not need law to tell them how to act responsibly. Most of us were raised right, and we know the difference between right and wrong. It's not that hard to just not be a dick and not do the wrong thing. It's pretty straightforward. And if you do the wrong thing, hey, accidents happen. You provide the remedy for the damage you've caused. But we strive to do things with honour and integrity and to have no intention to cause harm, loss, damage, or injury. Not to say it doesn't happen. Again, accidents may occur. And if that's the case, and I'm responsible for the accident, then I'm responsible for the remedy.
There's really this picture of people like yourself, extremist, outlaws. But essentially what you've just told me there, it seems that you're very principled to do the right thing and to be a good human being. Could you just go into what the difference between a human being or a man or a woman and a person is?
It's a massive trap, and look, a very hot topic for anyone who studies the law and their rights and our freedoms, as the confusion amongst these terms. Now, unbeknownst to most people, when we're dealing with the courts, for example, they speak in what sounds to all of us like English, but in actual fact, it's not. And they actually use a completely separate language that is deliberately designed to be very tricky and deceitful, known as the language called legalese, the language of lawyers, where we use the same words in legalese and in English, but in legalese and in the courts, they have a completely different meaning. Something so simple, which the courts will often ask you, is, do you understand? And when you agree and say, yes, I understand, in English, that means I comprehend, I get what you're saying. In legalese, it means you've agreed to stand under their authority. And this is a great example of some of the tricky and deceitful use of the language. So when we look at the language, we've got a discrepancy between English and legalese and the meanings of. Obviously, well, I'm going to say usually the definition of man and woman is quite simple, but in today's day and age, that's become quite a convoluted and complex and, dare I say, a politically correct topic. For your listeners, I am not a fan of political correctness. I will call a spade if that's how I perceive it. So to me, we have men and women. The other genders were not involved in the creation of conception, of conceiving a baby, for example. That's man and woman that can do that. That has been the way since way back if forever when. So I'll try and leave the political correctness out of this and not touch on the other genders there. But we basically have our main two being man and woman. And this is where life comes from. You and I were created courtesy of an act of nature, an act of God, thanks to our mother and father, or a male and female. This is how conception and we were created there, Dennis. So that's the man and woman that can do that. The man and woman is generally what's considered to be a living entity, that which can see, hear, and speak, that which can bleed, can breathe, and has arms, feet, and legs. Yep. Now, when we look at person or human being, they're very, very different. So let's do human before I get on to the person, because the person will take a bit longer to explain, which is very different to a man or woman. The human being, let's break down the wording of hue, man, and being. So hue and man, hue is the colour or the colour of, and man. So a hue man would be the colour of man. If we look up human in some of our dictionaries, legalese or otherwise, it describes the human as a monster. Now, that's quite easy to believe when we look at what we humans have done to the planet and to other life on this planet. I would happily agree that, yes, the humans are by nature are in fact a monster with the damage we've done to this planet and other species. I'm happy to agree with that term. People might disagree, but if we look these words up in the dictionary, a human is described as a type of monster. And we have the colour of man, and we break down human, and then we add the word being to it. So we have the colour of man being what? What are we being? Are we a being, or are we being something? And it's a very confusing and ambiguous use of the language to allow the courts to interpret it in their favour.
Important to note as well, Zev, when you say look in a dictionary, people can grab their dictionaries and they're not going to see what you're saying, but in the actual legal dictionaries, what you're saying is absolutely spot on. They literally define us. If we don't know what they're saying, they're calling us monsters. If that's the case, we don't have rights.
Now, surely if kids who aren't allowed to vote or buy cigarettes or alcohol or get a tattoo because they're considered not to be of the fit age in order to have the comprehension of their actions, can have the right. Surely the rest of us have the rights to identify as whatever we choose, such as a man or a woman. Now, when we look at the person then, and just before I get to person, when you were describing your dictionaries here, yes, we can look these terms up in the Oxford or the Macquarie dictionaries, which are the more commonly known ones to most people. But what about our legalese dictionaries, such as our Black's Law, the Bouvier, the Butterworth, or the LexisNexis, which all have the legal terms translated into English for us? So for anyone listening in, these are some of your other dictionaries you can look these other terms up in and see what they mean in the legal world, which is very different to how they interpret it in English. And this is part of where we get brought undone.
Talking to Zev Freeman about his mission, I guess, to facilitate a better understanding of our rights, and also I think to hold systems more accountable when they are treating the common people unfairly. We just discussed the misnomer term of sovereign citizen. Really, when we start looking beyond the ad hominems that the mainstream media throw around for people like Zev, what I'm finding is that there is a lot more to this story. The legal system is based on manipulation and deception.